Imagine you're in a war zone, smoke and dust everywhere when an email shatters your 13-year marriage. My wife didn't just leave me, she took all our savings, brought her boyfriend into our home thinking she'd get away with it. But I was ready with a plan to expose a criminal scheme that went far beyond a broken vow. Watch to the end to witness a gripping story of betrayal, strategy, and redemption. A high-stakes showdown that will leave you stunned. I received the divorce papers by email while still in the desert. The Kandahar sun scorched the tent dust, clinging to my uniform like a second skin. 13 years of marriage ended with a PDF attachment. I'm Declan Porter, 42 years old, staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne. I'd been in Kandahar for 4 months when Claire decided she was done waiting. The email's subject line was, "Let's be adults about this." The message was 3 sentences she'd filed for divorce, emptied our joint account, and brought her new boyfriend Jasper into our house in Tacoma, Washington. I read it twice, my chest tightening each word, cutting like a knife. I closed the laptop, stumbled to the communal shower, the warm water unable to wash away the pain of betrayal. I dressed for my shift, said nothing to anyone, jaw clenched to hold back the storm inside. That night back at the barracks, the hum of the camp's generator sounding like a distant heartbeat, I reopened the email. Claire's cold words glaring from the screen. I typed one word, understood. No arguing, no begging, no threats. My bunkmate Finn glanced over his face, half-lit under the glow of the novel he was reading. "You okay, buddy?" he asked, voice low, not pushing. "Fine," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "Just some stuff back home." He nodded, returned to his book. Military guys know when to leave things alone. Truth is, I wasn't surprised. 6 months before deployment, things had changed. Small things. Claire stopped asking about my day, stayed late at the dental office where she worked as a receptionist, went to the gym 3 times a week, but never seemed to sweat, wore new clothes, had new friends I never met, new passwords on her phone. One evening I tried talking about her day, but she just scrolled through her phone, answering curtly, her gaze distant like I was a stranger in my own home. I didn't confront her, didn't check her messages or follow her. That's not me, but I wasn't blind either. So I made quiet moves. Nothing loud, just precautions. I rented a storage unit in the suburbs of Tacoma, stashing important documents, birth certificate, marriage license, house deed in my name, only thanks to the VA loan military benefits paperwork. I moved my grandfather's watch, a vintage Rolex he wore in Vietnam. It's ticking a reminder of resilience, and my mother's heirloom silver set to the unit. Things that carried the soul of family. I opened a separate account at a different bank, diverting part of my pay, not enough for Claire to notice, but enough so I wouldn't be left with nothing if things fell apart. The night before deployment, I organized gear in the garage, the air heavy with Claire's silence. She stood nearby looking at the floor, not at me as I checked my gun case. I paused, looked at her hoping for one last moment of connection. "I'll be back soon," I said, voice hoarse. She nodded, eyes down. At the airport, she hugged me, her perfume strong, and said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry like she was saying goodbye to a colleague, not a husband heading to war. I stood there, gear bag heavy, searching for the woman I loved in her eyes. She was gone. I should have known then, but hope is a stubborn thing. I was wrong. What Claire didn't know was that I'd prepared for this moment, and what she didn't understand was that I don't start fights. I finish them. I met Claire at a friend's barbecue in 2010 on leave between tours, staying with my buddy Reed in Tacoma. She was in nursing school, her laugh bright like July sunshine ponytail swaying as she played frisbee with friends. Less stress, she said about her dental receptionist job later. her smile pulling me in like light at the end of a tunnel. We married 8 months later at Point Defiance Park. A small ceremony, her vows whispered under oak trees, promising forever. Her hand warm in mine. Claire said she was proud of my service, but she never really understood it. Her dad was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist, no military in her family. She'd ask when I'd get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the Army was my career, not a temp gig. We bought our house in 2014, nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage due to VA loan rules, but I added her to the deed, because that's what married couples do share. Those early years we sat on the porch, Claire's head on my shoulder planning for kids, a dog trips to the Rockies. One night she sketched a nursery layout on a napkin, eyes sparkling with dreams, talking about a wooden crib by the window. My dad died a year after we married, heart attack while shoveling snow. My mom passed 3 years later, lung cancer, though she never smoked. They left me some money, not a fortune, but enough for Claire and me to pay off student loans and keep a cushion. I deployed 4 times during our marriage, Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Each time I returned, Claire seemed more distant, restless, like she was playing a role she'd outgrown. I didn't sign up to be a military wife, she said once after I mentioned re-enlisting for another 4 years. I'm tired of being alone all the time. I understood I really did, but the Army was the only place I felt I truly belonged. I was good at my job. People relied on me. In 2019, things started changing, small stuff. At first, Claire got irritated when I called during her girls' nights, talked about her friend Nora, who divorced her husband and was living her best life. Now hinted we didn't have much in common anymore. I suggested marriage counseling. She brushed it off, saying we were fine, just going through a phase. Then came late nights at work, weekends away with friends I'd never met, new clothes, a gym membership she rarely used. I remember trying to call her from base once, but she hung up, texting, "Busy, talk later." My heart sank like a premonition of what was coming. I should have confronted her, but that's not my way. Never has been. My dad taught me to think before I speak, be sure before I act. So I watched and I prepared quietly because my gut told me something was coming, and in this life, you trust your gut. 2 weeks after the divorce email, I was in the mess hall, the clatter of trays and soldiers' laughter filling the air, when my phone buzzed a bank app notification, another withdrawal, $800 to $500, almost everything left. I set my fork down and opened the app. The joint account balance was 22 out of 37. Our $47,000 savings built over years was gone, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Knox, a guy from my unit, glanced over bad news. I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff. That night in the barracks, the dim laptop screen glowing, I sat alone trying to suppress the feeling of being betrayed again. I thought about the times Claire and I sat on our porch planning our future. Now just a distant luxury, I called the bank from the base phone center, the line crackling with interference. Turns out Claire had been moving money for weeks, small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfers started the day after I deployed. I hung up and stood in the hallway, boots caked with dust scuffing the concrete floor, watching my brothers in arms laugh, call their kids wives, parents, normal life unfolding around me while mine burned to ash. That's when Finn found me. Heard from Rowan. "You looked like you saw a ghost at Chow," he said, leaning against the wall, eyes watchful. I don't share personal stuff, but Finn had pulled me out of a tight spot in Kandahar once I trusted him. "My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house," I said. "Sent divorce papers last week while I was on patrol. Finn didn't say I'm sorry or you'll find someone better. He just asked, 'What's your plan?' 'Not sure yet,' I said. He nodded. 'Let me know if you need anything.' That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the barracks' desert wind howling outside the tent. I thought about evenings when Claire used to make my favorite beef stew singing along to the radio, her eyes sparkling as she talked about dreams. Now those memories felt like a mockery from across an ocean. I opened my laptop and logged into our home security system. Something Claire probably forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange truck in our driveway, a man I'd never seen walking our dog, using my coffee mug wearing my Seahawks sweatshirt, and Claire laughing in the kitchen I'd renovated on my last leave, her hand lightly touching his shoulder, her eyes as if I'd never existed. I sat there in the dark barracks, feeling like my heart was being crushed. But then a cold, sharp clarity rose sharper than ever. Something shifted inside me. Not quite anger, but a lucid, cold precision. I closed the laptop, pulled out my phone, and made a list call. Wyatt Army buddy, now a lawyer. Check VA loan terms. Contact Sergeant Vaughn about emergency leave. Review home refinance documents Claire casually mentioned last year. Check security on my military pension accounts. I sat there in the dark barracks, wondering if I'd missed signs from the early years, or if Claire was always someone I didn't truly know. I thought about how she cried when my mom died, holding me tight, promising to always be there. That promise now felt like a joke. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt focused, like I was planning a mission. This wasn't about emotions anymore. It was about strategy. At 5 a.m. before my shift, I emailed Wyatt with the subject, "Need legal help, discreet and urgent." He replied an hour later, "Call me secure line only." When I hung up after that call, Wyatt's steady voice cutting through the spotty connection, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell, threaten, or even confront her. I just needed to wait, watch, and let her actions become her own trap. That afternoon, Sergeant Vaughn called me into his tent, his desk cluttered with maps and coffee mugs. "Heard you've got personal issues," he said, eyes sharp but warm. I told him about the divorce and the emptied accounts. He leaned back, sighed. "Seen other soldiers go through this, Porter. You're not alone. Need leave to handle it." I nodded. "Soon as possible, sir." He jotted a note. "You're one of my best. Don't let this break you sorted out come back stronger." His words were like an anchor, reminding me I had a team beyond this marriage. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Claire I was coming, didn't call, didn't text, just checked into a motel in downtown Tacoma under a false name and contacted Wyatt. We met at a diner 10 miles out of town, the smell of bacon and burnt coffee thick in the air. "You look like you've been through hell," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feel like it too," I replied. Wyatt handed me a folder. "Everything we discussed, house deed loan, documents, bank statements, and this?" He pulled out a separate sheet. "Found something interesting digging through your finances. It was a refinance application with my signature, but it wasn't mine. Not exactly. Someone had tried to copy it but got details wrong. The middle initial was off, and the stroke pattern wasn't mine." "Claire did this?" I asked, though I knew the answer. Wyatt nodded. 3 months ago, she used the home equity to pull $330,000. Your signature is required since the VA loan is in your name only." I leaned back in the booth, the plastic seat creaking. "Forge my signature. Take a loan against our house, empty our accounts, and divorce me," I said, voice low. "Busy woman. It gets worse," Wyatt said, sliding another document over. She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. "He's got a record, 2 DUIs, and a fraud charge from 2019. I took a deep breath. Claire's image from our wedding day flashing by her radiant smile, white dress now tainted by this mess. "What are my options?" Plenty Wyatt said. "But first, you need to decide what you want." I looked at the folder memories of Claire's laughter mixing with the pain of that email. I thought about the nights she'd held me promising to always be there, and how she'd broken that promise. I want what's rightfully mine, and I want her to understand that actions have consequences. Wyatt smiled. Then let's get to work. The next day I drove past our house. Jasper's truck wasn't there, but Claire's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street, my pulse steady despite the urge to storm in and confront her. But that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank, met the loan officer who handled the refinance, showed my military ID, my real signature on my driver's license and the forged documents. His face went pale. "I'll have to report this immediately, I understand," I said. "I've already filed a police report." That night I sat in my motel room, neon light flickering through the curtains, when my phone buzzed with a text from Clare. "What did you tell the bank? Jasper says someone's asking questions." I didn't respond, my mind drifting to nights when Clare used to make my favorite beef stew singing to the radio, her eyes sparkling as she talked about dreams. Now those memories were just a reminder of betrayal. The next day I went to the county clerk's office, filed paperwork, contesting the refinance due to fraud, and registered a notice that no property changes could be made without my presence. 2 days later, I sat in my motel room, the dim light from a desk lamp casting shadows on Wyatt's folder. I wondered if I should call Clare, give her a chance to explain, or just to hear her voice one last time. But I shook my head. She'd chosen her path, and so had I. Clare called, her voice shaky. I let it go to voicemail, Declan. "We need to talk." The bank called about the house. "What are you doing?" "If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults." Adults again. Just like her email. I didn't take the bait. Wyatt called that afternoon. "They've frozen the refinance funds, and there's more. Your wife's boyfriend's been driving your truck, right? The one in your name." "Yeah. He got pulled over this morning for driving with a suspended license from those DUIs. The truck's been impounded." I allowed myself a small smile, a flicker of relief. "Good," I said. "Anything else?" "Yeah," Wyatt said, his tone serious. "They found some prescription pads in the truck from the dental office where Clare works. They weren't blank." I gripped the phone. "She's been stealing prescription pads. Looks that way. Police are investigating." I hung up and sat on the motel bed, the cheap mattress sagging under my weight. This was spiraling beyond what I'd imagined. A fleeting instinct to protect Clare. Old feelings flared. But then I remembered the camera footage, my house, my dog, my life given away like it meant nothing. No. This was the path I'd chosen, and I didn't want to turn back. The next morning I met the bank fraud investigator Thompson, a short guy with tired eyes, a coffee stain on his tie. "This happens more than you'd think," he said, spreading documents across the table. Husband deploys, wife sees an opportunity. "What now?" I asked. "We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance, but there's a problem. Half the money's gone. $164,600, I leaned forward. "Where did it go?" Thompson hesitated. "I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house, my signature, forged, my money, stolen." He nodded slowly, then turned his computer screen toward me. "These are the transactions from the refinance account." I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to someone named Silas Brooks, not Jasper. A complete stranger. "Who's Silas Brooks?" I asked. Thompson shrugged. "Not my department, but you should have your lawyer subpoena these records." I left the bank, stepping onto Tacoma's streets, rain misting my jacket. I called Wyatt immediately, my heart pounding. "Silas Brooks," I said. "Find him." An hour later, he called back. "Got it." Silas Brooks is a real estate agent, specializes in quick sales cash deals. She was planning to sell our house. I said, the realization hitting like a punch to the chest. Looks that way. The payments were likely earnest money for a listing. But here's the kicker. Brooks has done business with Jasper Hayes before, 3 deals in the past 2 years. Jasper Hayes, Claire's boyfriend. That's right. I sat on a park bench in Tacoma rain, soaking my jacket trying to process it. So this wasn't just Claire leaving me for some guy. This was what a conspiracy. Maybe, Wyatt said carefully. I looked into Jasper Hayes. He's got a pattern. Targets women in divorce or with deployed husbands. I found 3 cases. Each time the woman's house is sold below market to Brooks's clients. Hayes takes a cut, then moves on. And Claire, did she know about this? Hard to say. She might be a victim too, or she might be in on it. I rubbed my face trying to make sense of it. This wasn't just Claire betraying me anymore. It was something bigger, calculated, and other military families had been victims. What do we do now? I asked. I've contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Wyatt said, this crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're very interested. That night I sat in my motel room sipping a beer, neon light flickering through the curtains. I wondered if Claire had been playing me our entire marriage, or if she'd been swept up in Jasper's game, and whether it even mattered. I thought about evenings when she used to make my favorite beef stew, singing along to the radio, her eyes sparkling as she talked about dreams. Now those memories were just a reminder of betrayal. My phone buzzed a text from Claire Declan. Please call me, the bank's talking about fraud, and Jasper got arrested for driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the call button, almost pressing it, but then I stopped. She didn't deserve that chance anymore. I typed, "Who is Silas Brooks?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped. Started again. Stop. Finally. I don't know what you're talking about. $164 to $600. Multiple transfers. House listing. No response for 10 minutes, then it's not what you think. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I met Reed, our mutual friend, at a Tacoma coffee shop, hoping he knew something about Claire. Have you seen Claire lately? I asked. Reed avoided my eyes, mumbling about being busy with work. Reed, if you know something, tell me. He sighed. She's been hanging out with Jasper, saying you didn't care about her. I didn't want to get in the middle of this. I clenched my fists, feeling betrayed again by a friend. Thanks for being straight, I said, standing to leave, my heart heavy. Wyatt called right after FBI wants to meet. They've been investigating Hayes and Brooks for months. Your case could blow it wide open. For the first time since that divorce email, I felt a twinge of satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was starting to come out. I met FBI agents at their Tacoma field office. Agent Patel and Agent Donovan in a cold meeting room, the faint smell of bitter coffee lingering. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents Wyatt and I had gathered. Your case helps establish a pattern, Agent Patel explained. It shows intent organization. This is a conspiracy, not isolated incidents. What about Claire? I asked. My wife, ex-wife. The agents exchanged a glance. We're still determining her level of involvement, Agent Donovan said carefully. Did she ever mention financial difficulties? Pressure to sell the house? I thought back, recalling times Claire complained about bills, her voice tense when she said we should sell the house to lighten the load. I didn't agree, as the mortgage was well within my salary's means. She kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need. The mortgage payments were completely manageable with my salary. Patel took notes. When did that start? About 6 months ago, around the time she must have met Jasper. And the refinance agent Donovan asked. She never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed. They asked more questions, jotting notes carefully, their eyes sharp as I detailed the transactions and Claire's actions. When we finished, Agent Patel handed me her business card. We'll be in touch for now. Don't confront your wife or Hayes. We need to build this case carefully. I nodded, understood. That evening I drove through our neighborhood again, parking down the street, rain blurring the street lights. Jasper's truck was back, probably redeemed from impound. Claire's car was gone. My phone buzzed a text from Clare. We need to meet in person. Meet me at Point Defiance Park tomorrow. I showed the text to Wyatt over breakfast the next morning as we sat in a diner, a jukebox playing low, mournful tunes. Don't go, he advised. Nothing good will come from talking to her now. I won't, I said. But I want to know what she's doing while she thinks I'll show up. We drove to the house at 9:30 a.m., parked across the street. At 9:45, Claire came out, got in her car, and drove toward Point Defiance Park. Now what? Wyatt asked. Now we wait, I said. 20 minutes later, a car with a real estate logo pulled up. Silas Brooks Jasper greeted him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. Should we follow them? Wyatt asked. I shook my head. No need. I installed security cameras inside and outside the house last year. They upload to the cloud. Wyatt raised an eyebrow. You never mentioned that. Didn't need to, I said, pulling out my phone and opening the security app. I tilted the screen so Wyatt could see Brooks and Jasper were in my living room. Brooks was taking photos while Jasper pointed out features of the house. I turned up the volume. Should list by the end of the week, Brooks said. I've got a buyer lined up, cash offer as usual. How much? Jasper asked. $420,000. We list at $470,000. They offer $420,000. Everyone's happy. What about the husband? Claire says he's causing trouble. Brooks waved dismissively. Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but then they've got deployments duties. He'll take a payout and disappear. I looked at Wyatt, my blood heating, but I stayed calm. You getting this? He was already recording the conversation on his phone. I sent camera access to Agent Patel with a short message. Happening now. 30 minutes later, FBI vehicles surrounded the house. From down the street, I watched agents lead Brooks and Jasper out in handcuffs, their faces pale under Tacoma's gray sky. I stood there, rain seeping through my jacket, feeling like a weight had lifted, though my heart remained heavy. My phone rang. Patel. We got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme, she said, plus conspiracy wire fraud and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We'll need a formal statement from you. Of course, I said. And Mr. Porter, your wife just arrived at the scene. She's very distraught. I looked up the street, my heart pounding. Claire stood on our front lawn, hands over her mouth, watching agents carry boxes of documents out of the house. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Patel said, on what she knew and what you want. I watched Claire, 13 years of marriage, flashing through my mind. Her first smile, our wedding dance evenings together on the porch, and now this. I wondered if she'd ever truly loved me, or if it was all an act. I just want things to be fair, I said finally. The federal case moved quickly. Jasper and Brooks both took plea deals implicating each other and other accomplices in a 3-state operation targeting military families. Claire insisted she didn't know about the larger scheme, saying Jasper convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing, and the refinance was his idea. Maybe that was true, maybe not. I thought back to the times she'd looked at me, her eyes once full of love, now just distant. Perhaps she'd been manipulated, but that didn't erase her choices. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claims to the house or my military pension, and a signed confession about the forgery. In return, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that. Kandahar email. No fault, a clean break, all things considered. On the day the final papers were signed, I got a call from Agent Patel. Jasper Hayes was sentenced today 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Brooks got 12 years. Thought you'd want to know? Thank you, I said. There's more, she added. We found they did this to 11 other military families. Your case helped us establish the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you. I sat on the porch of my rented apartment watching the Tacoma sunset, thinking about those other soldiers' men who deployed believing their homes and marriages were safe, only to return to nothing. I thought about the nights I'd lain beside Clare, listening to her talk about dreams and how it had all crumbled. I hadn't set out to bring down Jasper and Brooks's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes fate takes you places you didn't expect. My phone buzzed a text from Clare. I never meant for things to end like this. I stared at the message, memories of her face, young, tender, before the lies flashing by. I thought about the times she'd laughed, how she used to hold my hand, and how she'd thrown it all away. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many memories. Too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a babbling creek out back, no neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Army. 20 years was enough. I'd given enough. I adopted a German shepherd named Scout, started doing carpentry for locals. Nothing fancy, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I thought about Clare, wondered where she'd ended up. Wyatt heard she moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another dental office, starting over. Maybe I didn't hate her anymore, and honestly, I didn't feel much about her at all. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. I thought about the times I'd nearly not made it back from Afghanistan, how I'd fought to protect my team, and how I'd fought to reclaim my life from her. One evening, I received a letter from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was Navy deployed when Jasper and Brooks targeted them. The FBI had given her my name because of the case. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to walk away. I read the letter twice, then pinned it to my fridge. On quiet days when the silence grew too loud or memories cut too deep, I'd look at that letter and remember that from all the wreckage, something good had come. I reached out to the woman in Fort Worth asking about her family. She said her husband was back. They were rebuilding their life and they were grateful for me. For the first time, I felt my actions weren't just for myself, but for others who'd been hurt like I was. Last I heard, Jasper was still in prison, Brooks too. The system for once had worked. I thought about Sergeant Vaughn, who'd said I was his best soldier, and how he'd be proud to know I didn't just survive this, but helped others. I called him once, told him about the case, and he laughed loudly over the phone. Knew you'd pull through, Porter, he said. As for me, I'm finding a way forward one quiet day at a time, building something new, something that can't be stolen, can't be forged, can't be betrayed, something that's just mine. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this dramatic journey from betrayal to justice. If Declan's story of resilience inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories like this. Drop a comment, have you ever faced betrayal and come through stronger? I'd love to hear your stories. Share this video with anyone who needs a push to keep fighting. See you in the next one.